We are halfway through. 2 of our 4 ingredients are already there. Now we only need to add some flour and a pinch of salt. There is a method most pizza makers follow when they prepare the dough, and we will try to replicate it at home. We are going to add the flour in several rounds. The first will be the bigger one. If you're using a stand mixer, it's okay to add half to 1/3 of the total amount of flour. If you're kneading by hand, then it's okay to add just half of the flour. In this phase, we are trying to build up a layer to keep the yeast separated from the salt. Those two are not exactly best friends. That's why we will add salt only after the aforementioned protective layer is built. You are probably wondering why we had to keep them separate. The answer lies in salt's ability to absorb moisture from the surrounding environment, including nearby cells of yeast in our case. Salt is hygroscopic, and if we put it in direct contact with yeast, it could easily kill its cells, absorbing their water. But obviously we can't do without salt. Besides its obvious function of giving more taste, salt offers many benefits. It grants elasticity and reduction of the stickiness. It provides resistance to our dough. It slows down both the microbial activity and the enzymes responsible for the softening. It makes the gluten network stronger. It will improve volume, softness, fragrance, and color. As you can see, even something we take for granted in our everyday cooking can have such a meaningful impact. If you feel a little bit like playing the chemist, do this experiment. Grab 2 glasses and pour some water in them, filling them up to half. I would suggest to speed up the things using lukewarm water so you will see the outcome in around 10 minutes. Then add half a teaspoon of yeast and same amount of sugar in both glasses. Finally, add half a teaspoon of salt in 1 glass only and wait to see what happens. I don't want to spoil the surprise, so I will not describe the result, but you will see what I mean when I say that salt has a bad influence on the activity of the yeast. I always do this little experiment during my pizza making classes, and without fail, I see many surprised expressions on the face of the attendees. There is also a video on my YouTube channel. It's a time lapse that lasts only a couple of minutes, so you won't have to wait for the magic thing to happen in real time. Let's go back to kneading. Now that we've added a first round of flour and a nice layer is built, we can add salt to our dough. The most common dose is 2% of the amount of flour. It's not strictly necessary to let the dough absorb completely the salt before we continue. We can add more flour straight away and finish it in 2 or 3 rounds. As obvious as it sounds, please always remember to add salt. Being a hygroscopic, it will also help flour with the water absorption, so it will speed up slightly the whole process and it will grant a drier feel to your dough. Back to kneading, this is the point at which things get harder or funnier, depending on your point of view. You have to transform a mess still lacking a well-defined shape into a beautiful ball of dough, nice and smooth, soft and non-sticky. You will need time, patience and a bit of elbow grease. Unless you got a stand mixer, then you will only need time. If you have a mixer, use its hook tool, as it's very similar to what we use in most pizzerias, where the most common kind of professional mixer boasts a nice spiral-shaped tools that kneads pretty nicely. There is a reason why, to produce a nice dough, these machines spin in the same direction. It's easier to create the gluten network we want. If you knead by hand, you should avoid squeezing, squashing, stretching, pushing, twisting and so on. They are not good for our purpose. The dough enjoys repeating movements, so find one that comes natural and flowing for you, then repeat it over and over, keeping momentum. You could try and get familiar with a certain movement I find pretty effective, and I use myself when I knead by hand. Put your fingers underneath the dough and fold it on itself from the bottom up, maybe with a little help by your thumb. You want to push the edge you're handling into the center of the dough ball. Then rotate your dough 90 degrees and repeat the movement with another side of the dough ball. Then rotate your dough 90 degrees and repeat the movement. Then rotate your dough 90 degrees and repeat the movement again. This could be demanding and tiring if you are dealing with big amounts and preparing a big dinner for a family gathering or a pizza party with friends, but it will be rewarding too. Remember, there is always somebody who is in a worse position. For example, yours truly, when he had to face a broken mixer. And you can imagine how many dough balls we need to make ready in the pizzeria, right? After I needed around 18 kilos of water and flour, I could barely feel my arms, and I still had to do my daily preparation. Busy day day one. Enough with my adventures, we have things to do here. If you are kneading by hand, be aware of a very common lethal mistake people do during this phase. Work on flour surface. Actually, that's even suggested by many recipes, blogs, websites. I can't get my head around this, and I absolutely don't understand why. It could totally ruin your dough. In fact, if you get in the habit to dust your working surface with flour to reduce the stickiness, I am sure you will do it repeatedly as the dough absorbs the flour and starts to become sticky again. The problem is you will end up altering completely the balance of the recipe you are following. And it's extremely likely that your dough will be hard, dry, it will not have a smooth surface, and it will not even stick together. Furthermore, when it's time to stretch it, you will see how reluctant it will be. It will tend to shrink back, and you will have to be very patient to stretch it to the size you want. So please mark these words. It's extremely important that you resist the temptation to add more flour. Do not worry if the dough is a bit sticky, that's normal. Keep kneading, the further you go, the less sticky it will become. And when it won't be sticky anymore, that's actually the first signal that your dough could be ready. If you are using a mixer, you will notice that the dough comes off the walls of the bowl easily. Then you can do a quick and easy test, pressing gently the tip of your finger on the dough. If it springs back to its original shape, then it's ready. Otherwise, you will need to work a bit more. A different, a bit more complicated method is the window pane test. Let your dough rest for a minute or two, then take a piece and flatten it. Spread it apart with your fingers slowly and gently until you get a thin window that you can see through. If it rips, then the dough is not properly kneaded yet, and you want to spend a couple more minutes on it. In the pizzeria, we don't actually use any of these tests. Professionals look for something called punto di pasta, roughly translated as dough point. It's a right combination of elements you catch with your touch and eyesight, and every pizza maker looks for his very own punto di pasta. Once we finish kneading, a whole new chapter starts, both for our dough and for this book. But before you turn the page, let me give you a last word of advice. If you plan to prepare several pizzas, you should need one big batch of dough and then break it down into equal parts. Probably this will seem pretty obvious for some of you, but I don't want to take anything for granted. In fact, once I saw with my own eyes a photo of a person kneading several pizzas in different bowls, each with their own water, yeast, flour and salt. This is terribly time consuming, and I would strongly recommend avoiding it.